When Jeremy Lin took the floor for the New York Knicks on February 4th, 2012, he was, for all intents and purposes, a nobody. Sure, basketball sickos knew his story. Harvard grad, Ivy League star turned NBA point guard. And Asian Americans followed the story of the first American of Chinese or Taiwanese descent to play in the Association. But there was no reason to suspect Lin's pro career would amount to anything more than a cup of coffee. Within weeks, however, Lin would become one of the most famous athletes on the planet, taking Knicks fans and the basketball world on an unbelievable whirlwind forever immortalized by one phrase.
Linsanity continues here at Madison Square Garden.
Undrafted out of Harvard, Lin played for Dallas's 2010 Summer League team, then managed to break into the NBA after signing a partially guaranteed deal with his hometown Warriors. But after averaging less than 10 minutes in 29 games for Golden State in 2010-11, the Warriors waived Lin before his second-year salary of $800,000 became guaranteed. The Rockets then waived him too after taking a preseason flyer on him. By the time the Knicks claimed Lin off waivers a few days into the lockout-shortened 2011-12 season, the 23-year-old sophomore's biggest pro accomplishment had been winning MVP of a Chinese tournament during the labor stoppage. Meanwhile, after ending a 7-year playoff drought and trading for Carmelo Anthony the year before, the Knicks were off to a wretched start. Injuries had decimated their guard depth. Baron Davis and Iman Shumpert were sidelined, Chauncey Billups had been waived for cap purposes, and head coach Mike D'Antoni just needed someone to back up Tony Douglas and Mike Bibby. By the time a February 4th matchup against the rival Nets arrived, Lin had played a measly 55 minutes across 9 games for the Knicks. Over 2 seasons in Golden State and New York to that point, he had never scored more than 13 points or even played 24 minutes in a game. But with the Knicks sputtering at 7-15 and no guard capable of running D'Antoni's offense, the coach got desperate. Suddenly, Lin was given his first shot at real minutes. And did he ever make the most of it? It began with a shocking 25 points and 7 assists off the bench in a Knicks win over the Nets, which saw Lin outduel all-star Darren Williams. D'Antoni had seen enough. The unlikely reserve was officially his new starting point guard.
My job, I didn't even know if I was gonna have a roster spot. And now, Mike, he's the toast of New York. In a word, he said overwhelming is what this past week has been like.
In the first start of his burgeoning career, Lin posted 28-8 to help New York upset Utah despite losing Anthony to injury.
Take Raja Bell, drives on him, inside, lays, flips it up, Chandler keeps it alive. Lin has to put it up, bang! A three-pointer as the shot clock expired!
Already without Amari Stoudemire, who was mourning the tragic loss of his brother in a car accident, the injury to Anthony was expected to take the wind out of the Knicks' sails just as quickly as Lin had breathed life into them. Lin had other ideas. He put up 23 points and 10 assists in Washington to give New York a 3rd straight win, then came home to the Garden and put on an unforgettable 38-point performance against Kobe Bryant's Lakers.
Lin on the drive, gets inside, banks it in! Wow! How about that?
After getting the best of Kobe and leading the Knicks to a 5th straight victory over Minnesota, Lin arrived to a hero's welcome in Toronto, where New York, still without Anthony, was set for a Valentine's Day matchup against the Raptors. Lin, now the reigning Eastern Conference Player of the Week, gave the people what they came for, dropping 28-10 in a comeback victory over the Raptors that ended with the most famous shot of his career.
Here at the Air Canada Center. Lin puts it up. Bang! Jeremy Lin from downtown, and the Knicks take the lead. Amazing here at the Air Canada Center.
By this point, Lin hadn't just reinvigorated the Knicks. He had become a global phenomenon. He was the main attraction in every arena he stepped foot in, and dominated the sports media discourse from dusk till dawn. Much of that conversation centered around just how different Lin was, or rather, how different he looked. As many were keen to point out, both innocently and ignorantly, NBA stars weren't supposed to look like Lin. While some celebrated the arrival of the first Asian American basketball star, others openly questioned whether Lin was receiving preferential media treatment in comparison to black players. At times, it was awkward. At others, it got downright racist. On the court, Lin led the Knicks to 7 straight wins, propelling New York back to 500 and fueling their return to the playoffs. He also earned a spot in the Rising Stars game and had some calling for a special All-Star exemption. But by the time the postseason tipped off a couple months later, Linsanity was already over. Lin recovered from his first loss as a starter, and another ugly headline, by pouring in 49 points, 23 assists, 11 rebounds, and 9 steals in the final 2 games of his insane 10-game run, and remained a starter deep into March. It may have been a knee injury that ended Lin's season, but a coaching change and the return of New York's franchise player had already zapped most of his powers. With D'Antoni being replaced by assistant Mike Woodson, and Anthony getting his way with a more ISO-oriented offense, a pick-and-roll maestro like Lin could no longer thrive. According to D'Antoni, Stoudemire, and others, that suited Melo and some Knicks teammates just fine.
Man, when that thing happened, it was like Melo came back and Jeremy Lin was so big. He was bigger than Melo, media-wise.
Yeah.
And so it did create a little like, this shit is not real. Like we can't live in this.
Is this sustainable or not?
Yeah, bro, we can't live in this.
Right.
But like, we should be living in it. But I think like it started to create like tension in the way we played.
New York made the 2012 playoffs as a 36-30 7th seed before being easily dispatched by the Big Three era Heat in the first round. Lin, a restricted free agent, departed for Houston after only 26 games played for the team whose season he helped resurrect. The Knicks had a chance to match the backloaded $25 million contract offered by the Rockets, but the writing was already on the wall. Anthony called the contract ridiculous, while Knicks guard J.R. Smith said Lin's deal could cause intra-squad jealousy. Melo's Knicks won 1 playoff series in his 6.5-year tenure. Lin stuck in the NBA, first as a starter, then as an effective reserve, and went on to average 12 points and 4 assists over 7 more seasons in Houston, LA, Charlotte, Brooklyn, Atlanta, and Toronto, where he ended his NBA career with a championship. Lin's 2012 run, and his performance against Kobe's Lakers in particular, became the subject of a 2022 HBO documentary. He's since extended his pro career in China and Taiwan. But what might have been had the Knicks found a way to coexist with Lin and play to some of his strengths in addition to Anthony's? We'll never know, but we'll always have Linsanity, one of the most exhilarating, unforgettable, and unlikely phenomenons in NBA history, if not sports history. There will always be those who scoff at what was essentially a 10-game run, but consider that the only players who've put together similar 10-game stretches in the years since were all genuine stars, if not Hall of Famers. Linsanity may have faded as quickly as it exploded onto the scene, but for a few magical weeks, it was real, and it was spectacular.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button.